Hey guys, welcome back to Southern Gal True Crime. I hope you all are doing well tonight. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for dropping in and spending a little time with me. Um, while you're here, hit that subscribe button and check the notification bell to all, so you'll be notified when I upload any new videos. I share missing persons, cold cases, some true crime in the news, if any new information comes out. And sometimes on Sundays, if I have time to get videos recorded. um, I have a real job, as I call it, and I work odd hours, so I just have to get these videos recorded as I can. And sometimes if I have time to get one recorded for Sunday, we'll lighten it up a little bit. We'll do a little, take a look at some dumb criminals, some weird crimes, some abandoned crime scenes, and things of that nature. But anyway, today is Wednesday, so we will be taking a look at some current true crime in the news. Not really any new information, but BTK, Dennis Rader, has been in the news lately because they've linked a couple, or trying to link possibly a couple of new cases to him. But he is not, Dennis Rader is not going to be the primary focus of this video, because in the news media, whenever they're reporting on these cases, they always focus on the offenders, which that's their job. That's what gets the ratings and so forth. So today I wanted to focus on the victims, the BTK victims, the ones that we know about, the 10 that he was charged with and is currently serving 10 life sentences for. Because to me, the victims are the most important parts of these cases, the victims and the victims' families. So like I said, I just want to take a little time today, share with you some information about the victims, what they were like before this terrible crimes happened to them, and just take a little bit of a closer look at them. But first, as always, I always share a current missing person. And let me take this full screen so I can see what I'm reading. This information comes from neverforgottenar.org, which is the Arkansas Missing Persons Database. Most of the cases that I share here in the missing persons are from Arkansas, because I am from Arkansas. So I try to bring awareness to our missing persons in hopes of getting their names out there, and maybe trying to do a little part on this little channel to try to bring some resolution and help find these missing persons, but most importantly, just to get their name out there, keep their name out there so that they are never forgotten. So today's featured missing person is Holly Amador. She is 36 years old. She is a white female, 5'4", 180 pounds, with blue eyes and brown hair. She went missing on August 19th of this year, so not quite, almost a month. And she went missing from North Little Rock, Arkansas. She has alias names, possibly Holly Nicole Amador, and then Holly Amador. So if you have any information regarding Holly or her disappearance, you can contact the North Little Rock Police Department at 501-758-1234. Now, as always, I will put a link to this information in the description box. So I encourage you to please share it to anyone, anywhere, because the more people that see it, the better. All right, with that important information taken care of, we will get into our case. So as I said, we're going to be taking a look at the victims of BTK. And I got to researching and looking, trying to find interviews with family members, um, and just what they were like. Like I said, what they were like before these terrible tragedies happened to them. Um, because, like I said, in the news, all we see is the aftermath of what happened to them, and I wanted to try to get an idea of what they were like before this happened. So once again, let me take it full screen. So we will just start off with just a little bit about Dennis Rader for anybody out there who may not know who Dennis Rader is. Um, he was known as BTK, which stands for Bind, Torture, Kill. Um, he was apprehended on February 25th of 2005 while he was on his way home to have lunch with his wife. And they said his wife had no idea that her husband was a monster. And that is very true. It is so scary how these serial offenders um, can compartmentalize and just lead two different lives. They'll a lot of times have a life with a family and children, a normal life. Nobody suspects anything. And then the flip side of the coin is they're these monsters, these offenders who go out there and commit these horrible crimes. And a lot of times the closest people to them, they have no clue. And so you can't fault. A lot of people want to, say, well, how can they not know? Well, it's entirely impossible that they don't know, because once again, these offenders are so um, experts at separating these two parts of their lives. So the known states that he had victims in were Kansas, and the possible states that he could have victims in are Oklahoma and Missouri. And those, the Oklahoma and Missouri, those are the two cases um, of Cynthia Kinney that they suspect is possibly connected to maybe a victim of Dennis Rader. And I believe that was the Oklahoma case, I believe. And then the Missouri case was the case of Grace Doe, was what she was dubbed when her remains were found, and she has since been identified as Shauna Beth Garber. So they are working. And I do have a playlist that I've done of the BTK Dennis Rader, so you can go check that out. I did do a video when this information came out about these two possible new victims. So instead of me sitting here repeating it again, just go check it out. Very interesting, very informative. He operated and committed his crimes between January 15th, 1974 and through January 19th of 1991. Now, as far as we will take a look at the victimology and how he went about choosing his victims. It says Dennis Rader's victims, they varied in age and background. He targeted women and young women, but he also took the lives of men and children who were present in the victims' homes. And I think maybe these men and the children, that the lives he took were collateral damage, unfortunately. And it says Surviving BTK, which is a blog, has one of the most in-depth recordings of who the BTK victims were, beyond just the details of the assault. So that is where, and I will link all my source information in the description box. I always do that, so you know where I get my information, that I'm not just, making it up off the top of my head. I do my research and include all the links and the sources that I use. So Rader referred to his victims as PJs or projects in his communications, particularly in letters and writings that he sent to the media, to law enforcement, and he even sent communications to victims' families, which is just horrifying, as the whole case is horrifying. This chilling and dehumanizing term, such as projects, excuse me, provides insight into Rader's disturbing mindset and reflects his detached and callous approach to his crimes. So that goes back to his detachment of how he could have a normal family life, and he detaches that part of himself from the serial offender side of himself. It also underlines his approach to how he saw his stalking, abducting, and killing as genuine work that needed to be carefully planned. So he was a very organized offender, did extensive planning. He kept journals of planning his crimes, and then journal entries of how he committed the crimes and the aftermath of the crimes. So yeah, this guy is a real piece of work. Okay, so we are going to take a look at the victims. The first victims were the Otero family. They passed away on January 15th, 1974. Four members of the family are no, two. I'm getting confused. I've done so much research, but anyway. And now some people have said that they do not think that the Otero family were victims of BTK. I don't know one way or another. Like I said, I haven't done. I of course know about the BTK, Dennis Rader in the case, but I haven't done extensive deep dive research into the case. But people who have, there are some of them that don't believe that the Otero family members were victims of BTK. But that's for another video, or you can go out and search it. There are a lot of videos on YouTube about these people who are experts that don't, why they don't believe that BTK was responsible for these killings. But anyway, so the Otero family was big. Parents Julie and Joseph had 5 children. And on that fateful morning, the oldest children had gone to school, leaving the 2 youngest, 9-year-old Joey and 11-year-old Josie, at home with their parents. And I believe it was the mother and father, Joseph and Julie, Joey and Josie were the 4 members of the family that were killed. Charlie Otero, who I believe was the oldest, he was 15 years old. 15 years old at the time. He was out at school that day, and he came home that afternoon and found their dog Lucky outside. And when he went through the back kitchen door, he walked into a nightmare. So he was the one who discovered his family members. Or I believe it said that he discovered his mother and father. And I just cannot, once again, I've said this in other videos, I cannot imagine if I walked in to my house or one of my family members, loved one's house, and found, I would just lose it right there. And I couldn't do it. Of course, it would be obviously hard on anybody. But I just, you don't want to imagine ever having to be in that situation. So a little bit about the Otero family. They were born in Puerto Rico. Joseph Otero had immigrated to the United States as a boy. He grew up in New York City, Spanish Harlem. He became a champion boxer. He fell in love with Julie, who was a popular, vivacious Puerto Rican immigrant from his neighborhood. As a child, she came to the U.S. on a banana boat. And after dating 2 years, they got married. They had a large wedding, and their first child, Charlie, was born 9 months later. So Charlie, the one that found his family members, he was the oldest. As soon as he was old enough, Joseph joined the Air Force, and he served for 20 years. So God bless him for his service. After he retired as a master sergeant, the aviation enthusiast was a commercial pilot with a commercial pilot's license, moved to Wichita, which is the says the air capital, in the fall of 1973. He worked as a mechanic and a flight instructor. He was fun and outgoing. He was a talented bongo player with a fascination for cars, and I can understand that. I have a fascination with cars. I love the old classic cars, muscle cars. Just love it. Let's see. He was a gourmet chef who collected recipes when traveling to exotic areas during his military career. It says he was a strict but proud father with high ideals for his children, especially in school. So he wanted his children to do well in school, maybe get, go to college, um, get a degree, get a good career. The children were expected to receive straight A's on their report cards. Julie, the mother, his wife, was a devout Catholic. She was a petite, kind spirited Air Force wife. And kudos to not only our men and women who serve in the military, but for their spouses and their families um, who have to live with the day to day, life of being a military wife, or as I call the military brat, the children's. But just God bless them for that. She's she didn't drink and she never got angry. She was passionate about her culture. She encouraged her children to speak Spanish. Her life was devoted to her family. Her oldest son Charlie described her as an angel. She had a brown belt in judo, and she took lessons with her children on base. So apparently she had at least a little bit of a knowledge of how to defend herself, which is always a good thing. The youngest of the family, Joey Otero, the second, who was 9, he was popular in his 4th grade class. He was athletic. He was a fast runner. He excelled in judo, as did his mother. He loved his dog Lucky, that he received on his 5th birthday. The youngest, oh, I already read it. Okay. At 11 years of age, Josie was a shy, sensitive 6th grader with an easy temperament, and she was a yellow belt in judo. She wrote poetry. She loved art. She played with Barbie dolls. I can relate to that because when I was a little girl, I loved my Barbie dolls. And she was the best student in the family, and she was very close to her older sister, Carmen. So this was just a beautiful, beautiful family, a military family, and they're very close. Kids did very well in school. Uh, had lots of activities they participated in. As I said, they were a couple of them excelled in judo along with their mom. And it just, of course, I always say all these cases are very sad, but when you have basically four members of of one family that is just taken away in an instant, that just, it makes it just so sad, so sad. So this is Charlie Otero, who is the oldest. He was the one that came in and discovered what had happened. He said that his father was a really outgoing, jovial kind of guy. His mom was very caring, loving Catholic woman. She was a mother first. This says that he did not know that his younger brother and sister had also been killed until a chaplain and a police officer told him at the police station. So that just broke my heart. So apparently when he came in, the only victims he saw were his mother and father, which was bad enough. And I'm assuming that he ran out of the house and maybe ran to neighbor's house, and they called the police, and of course they wouldn't let him. Either he chose not to go back in the house, or they wouldn't let him go in the house. So he had no idea until later that two of or his younger brother and sister had also been killed. He goes on to say, I thank God every day for the fact that I didn't find Joey and Josie, because I don't know how I would have handled it. Absolutely. That goes back to what I was saying about, if I, God forbid, if I ever walked in on a situation like this with that involved any of my loved ones, I would just lose it. Just totally, totally lose it. But that's beside the point. This is not about me. This is about these victims, these beautiful, beautiful victims. Well, they weren't beautiful victims, beautiful people that became victims. All right, next, the next victim was Catherine Bright. She lost her life on April 4th, 1974. This was only a few months after the Otero family. Rader broke into her house. He hid in the bedroom, waited for her to come home. A few hours later, she arrived home, but was with her brother Kevin, who Kevin is the only known survivor of BTK. By the grace of God, he survived. She was arrived home with her brother Kevin. Rader rushed out of the bedroom saying that he was a wanted criminal, which this was one of his MOs. He did this in a lot of his crimes. He told them that he was a wanted criminal, and so forth. He was waving a gun around. He ultimately tied up and separated Catherine and Kevin. And Kevin, and I'm not going to go into the details of what he did to Catherine, because I don't. They've been well documented in other videos that people did. So this is not what this video is about. It's more, as I said, concentrating on what the victims were like before this happened to them. So I'll just give you just the basics of what happened to them. So Kevin, despite being shot in the head multiple times, he was able to escape and find help. But unfortunately, it was too late to help Catherine. Now, it does say that she put up such a fight in Rader's attempt to strangle her that he did stab her multiple times in the abdomen, and she succumbed to her injuries, unfortunately. So a little bit about Catherine. She was one of 5 children. She loved singing in the church with her sister and friend. After she graduated from high school in 1971, she worked for Coleman, which I'm assuming maybe it's the Coleman Milk Company. That's the only Coleman company that I know. I may be wrong. At the age of 21, she was a smart, popular, and a funny college student. So she had everything going for her. She was beautiful, smart. She was in college. She had a good job, just leading a happy life until this monster found her and unfortunately ended her life. So this is Kevin Bright, her brother, who is the only known survivor of BTK. He says that he felt his life slipping away, and this is during the attack. As a pair of gloved hands squeezed his throat. Then he was shot twice in the face. He pretended like he was dead, and Rader left. So I've heard of this happening before, of course. Somebody gets attacked, they pretend like they're dead in the hopes that the attacker will leave, and then they can get help. So more than 30 years later, Kevin Bright, who's 49, is thought to be the only survivor of an attack by BTK. Since his sister's death, since Catherine's death, Kevin has moved several times. He met a wife while he was living in Ponca City, and he had asked not all the news agencies that he sought to not to print his current location, which I can understand, because God knows if the media or people knew where he lived, he would not have any peace. And he definitely deserves, after what he went through, losing his sister, being attacked by BTK, he definitely deserves some peace and stability in his life. Now, he does say that he has forgiven Dennis Rader. And in fact, he said he feels badly for him. He says, I pray for, and this is article was before they arrested Dennis Rader. He says, I pray for that person. I pray that he'll see he's lost and that he needs a savior and that he needs to be right for God and be right for mankind and give himself up, which eventually Dennis Rader was caught, thank God. Um, but I thought that was just very, very strong and very admirable of Kevin to say these things, that he forgives Rader, and hopes that he'll find God or whatever religious entity that you believe in, and and it's just so sad, so sad. But I really admire Kevin for those words. All right. The next victim was Charlie Ruth Vian. She passed away on March 17th, 1977. So this was 3 years after Catherine Bright. Rader posed as a detective and got inside the Vaughn family home. Once inside, he forced Charlie's 3 children at gunpoint into a bathroom and locked them inside. Rader later confessed that during these attacks, the telephone rang, causing him to expedite the attack on Shirley, ending her life, and then leaving the children still locked inside the bathroom, screaming for their mother. So, and it's very, very lucky, thank goodness, that the phone rang, and very sad that Shirley, the mother, ended up losing her life, but it was very lucky that the phone rang and the children were not harmed, because he did intend to go after Shirley. He had intended to go and harm the children, but it's just terrible to think that they were locked in the bathroom and they had to hear their mother screaming as her life was being taken. So hopefully those children got help, got counseling, and worked. And I don't know how old they would be now, but hopefully they are have a little bit of peace in their lives. Shirley was only 24 years old when she was killed. She left behind her 3 kids and her husband Richard. So hopefully her husband Richard also had found some counseling and worked through his grief, and he and his children are living as normal and peaceful a life as possible. Now, a little bit about Shirley. She was 26. She always seemed happy. She loved to sing in the church choir. She was an excellent mother to her 3 children, Bud, Stephen, and Stephanie, and I'm sure she was a good wife to her husband, Richard. Now, Stephen Relford, who is Shirley's son, says he is haunted by his mother's killing, as anybody would be, especially since he says he was the one who let Dennis Rader into their home. Stephen and his 2 siblings were home, he said, when Dennis Rader knocked on their door and asked Relford if his parents were there. And when Stephen told Rader that his mother was sick in bed, Rader came in, turned off the TV. Like I said, I'm not going into the events that happened, but he said the ordeal traumatized him, and he went silent for about 2 years, that he couldn't talk, and because he was so terrified. I can't remember if it said how old he was at this time, but no matter how old you are, of course, something like this is going to traumatize you, whether you're a child or an adult. So I can understand him saying that he was terrified and that he basically went silent for 2 years. Excuse me. Grab a drink right quick. Sorry about that. Okay, so the next victim is Nancy Jo Fox. And I'm sorry I keep scratching my nose, but once again, allergies. Nancy Jo Fox, she passed away on December 8th of, so sorry, of 1977. She was a single woman. She worked 2 jobs. She lived alone in a duplex. She was Dennis Rader's 7th victim. A day after the killing, Rader found a phone booth and he reported the killing of Nancy to the police. And it says it's almost as if he wanted the world to know that there was another BTK victim. Well, of course he did, because he was a narcissist. We all know he sent letters to law enforcement and to media, so he absolutely wanted to know. Didn't want to know that it was him, didn't want to get caught necessarily, but he wanted to know that these were his victims, and he wanted the notoriety. On this phone call, he said, "You will find a homicide at 843 South Pershing, Nancy Fox." He was recorded telling the dispatcher he left the phone dangling from the cord. The police replayed the recording of his voice to other victims' family members, and they tried to match the voice to other offenders, but they never found a match. So he was not caught that way, unfortunately. A little bit about Nancy. She was 25. She was smart. She was hardworking. She had a good sense of humor. She worked days full time as a secretary for a construction business, and she worked nights at a jewelry store. So she was a hardworking girl, had 2 jobs, good sense of humor. So just an all around good person. Now this is Beverly Fox. This is the daughter of Nancy Fox. Beverly says of her mother that she was very outgoing, very friendly. She was one to speak her mind. She didn't keep quiet. She was very outspoken. And Beverly said that her mother told her over the phone what happened to her sister. Also, excuse me, so Beverly Fox is Nancy Fox's sister. So their mother was the one that told Beverly what had happened to her sister. She says that kind of stuff happens to somebody else, but not to someone in your family. And that's you hear that time and time again. These things don't happen in my town. They don't happen to people I know. They don't happen to my family. But unfortunately, to a lot of people, it does. She says, in some respects, knowing that it wasn't somebody we knew was a relief. But then at the same time, now you've got this crazy person who's running around out there doing these atrocious things to other people. And she says, what did she, referring to Nancy, what did Nancy do to him to make him want to do this to her? And that's always the question. Why? Why do they do this? And unfortunately, the truth is there's usually not a reason. It's just because these offenders are psychopaths and they just get enjoyment out of what they do. They get enjoyment out of basically killing people, ending people's lives. And that's a mundane reason. But unfortunately, like I said, and a lot of times that's the case. They get enjoyment out of it. That's the only reason they do it. All right, so the next victim was Maureen Wallace Hedge. She passed away on April 27th of 1985. Now, by 1985, it says it had been some time since Rader's last crime. On April 27th of use my words. On April 27th of that year, he left in the middle of a Cub Scout meeting complaining of a headache. When driving by Marine's house, which was just 6 doors down from his own home, so he was working within his area of comfort, apparently. Um, he cut the phone lines to Marine's home. He snuck in. She was a 53-year-old widow, described as a kind and gentle woman. After waiting in Marine's bedroom closet until 1 a.m. in the following morning, he came out of hiding, turned on the bathroom light, and he choked her to death. A few other things went on that we won't go into, but he ultimately took Marine's body to the church basement in order to pose and photograph her. He then dumped her remains along a dirt road in Park City. Like I said, there in between when he killed her and when he dumped her body, he did atrocious things. If you want to read about them, there are a lot of videos out there on YouTube that explains everything, so you can feel free to go watch them. But we're, like I said, we're not going to go into them in this video. Come on. Okay. So Marine Wallace Hedge was 53. She was a quiet, dependable second shift supervisor at the medical center coffee shop. And I did not know this until I read this. She was originally from Arkansas, which is where I'm from. She had moved to Kansas with her late husband. She was widowed the previous year before she was killed. She was described as a kind, petite, well-dressed woman with a charming Southern voice. Kind of like my voice. I don't know if my voice is charming, but it's definitely Southern. She was a devoted mother to her 3 daughters, 1 son, and grandchildren. And she enjoyed bingo, yard work, and attending the Baptist church. So she was and I can say this because I live in the South. She was a typical Southern lady. The way they describe her reminds me a lot of my grandma. She was a hard worker. She and my grandparents owned a farm and raised cattle, raised crops. Sorry, sorry, I gotta switch positions here a little bit. I'm getting a little stiffened up here. In my older age, I found that I can't sit or stand too long, or something starts hurting. But anyway, lost my train of thought as usual. Marine reminded me, as I was saying, a lot of my grandmother, a hard worker. She worked on the farm. She was a farm wife, and she enjoyed church. She was, always quiet, very opposite of my grandpa. My grandpa was more high strung, and my grandma was just always calm. I never heard her raise her voice, never heard her say a curse word. Very devoted to her family, her kids, grandkids, great grandkids. So yeah, that was just, it kind of touched me a little bit when I was reading about Marine, because reminded me of my mammy, as I called her. That's what we called my grandma, was Mammy. All right. My slides do not want to. Okay. Next, we have Vicki Lynn Wegerly. She passed away on September 16th of 1986. So in the fall of 1986, Rader would often hear beautiful piano playing when he walked by a house. He became obsessed with the music, and after discovering that Vicki Wegerly, who was a young mother with a small family, she was home alone often. So at 10 a.m. on September 16th, Rader dressed up as a telephone repairman with a briefcase and helmet. He walked around the house for a moment before going up to her door. Vicki answered. Rader said he was doing repairs around the neighborhood, and he asked if he could check her telephone line inside. Now, this is a common ruse that offenders have used. And, of course, this was back in 1986. I grew up, I was child at that time, and it was a different time. If somebody that you didn't know came up and knocked on your door, you didn't hesitate to open the door, come on in. There was more of a sense of trust than is there is these days. These days, if um somebody that I didn't know for one, if I'm here, no matter if it's day or night, my door is always locked, always locked. If I'm in the vehicle, if I stop somewhere and I'm getting in and out of the car, my door is locked until I'm ready to enter or to exit the car. And it's sad, but that's just the state of the world these days. You cannot be too careful. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that you can't trust. So anyway, she let him inside, and after a few minutes, he was fumbling around with tools, pretending like he was repairing. He ended up drawing a gun, and he forced her into the primary bedroom. Once again, not going to go into the details of what he did to her, but she was found soon after by her husband, unfortunately. When he got home, she was rushed to the hospital, clinging to life, but she was pronounced dead after a few hours. So that was Vicky Lynn Wegerly. So this, sorry, I gotta adjust again. Okay, so this case has kind of a twist, or a little bit more to it. So Vicky was 28-year-old wife and mother. She was a calm, kind, quiet person. She never raised her voice. She left her children. She enjoyed visiting with other mothers about parenthood. When she became pregnant, she began providing childcare from her home. She attended two churches, the Lutheran church because it was her faith, and then the Methodist church because it was a church in their neighborhood. And she volunteered to watch children in the church nurseries, which I can relate to that too, because when I was preteen and a teen, I helped out in the nursery at the church that our family attended, and also did babysitting. Now this is where it gets a little twist. So when Vicky was killed, her two young children not only lost their mother, but they almost lost their father, because Bill, who is Vicky's husband, many people believed for 18 years that Bill killed Vicky, that her husband had killed her. Now, I don't know. I remember reading a little bit about this. Of course, when anything like this happens, the husband or the significant other is always looked at first, but apparently they may have found some evidence or thought that thought that he could possibly have killed Vicky. But Bill told says Moriarty, I think it was Aaron Moriarty, because this came from an interview maybe from 2020. He says that he understood that police would look at him in his wife's killing, but he also says this monster came into my home, took my wife away from me, took my life. He took our whole lives away from us as we knew it, and changed us as people for the rest of our lives. And that is absolutely the sad thing, not only for the victim, but the victim's families have to live with these crimes for the rest of their lives. Obviously, it changes them completely, changes their lives. Just in an instant, just like that, your family can be taken away from you, and your life is changed forever. Okay, next we have Dolores Arlene Johnson Davis. She passed away on January 19th of 1991. So based on what we currently know to be true, by 91, Rader had not killed anyone in roughly, I think it says 2 years. The StreamYard logo's in my way. And because of this, and the fact that some of his previous victims had put up a fight to stay alive, Rader targeted an older woman. So up until this time, he had his victims were younger women or younger children, females. Rader lived a mile and a half away from Dolores. She was a 60-year-old woman who lived alone. On January 19th, 1991, he came up with an excuse to once again to slip out of a Boy Scout meeting. In one of the other cases, that's the ruse he used. He was sick or something, and he slipped out of this meeting. I'm assuming so that if he was ever questioned, he can use that as a alibi. Oh no, I was at the this meeting, Cub Scout meeting at the time. I couldn't have done it. So he slipped out of this meeting. He drove to his parents' house to change out of his scout uniform into his quote hit clothes. After changing, he drove and parked his car in the Baptist church lot, and he walked to Dolores' house on foot. Once there, under the protection of the darkening evening sky, he broke the glass door at the back of the house with a cement block that he found in the yard. And once inside, he told Dolores that he was a criminal on the run. Once again, he used that story, and that he needed food and money. He put her in handcuffs, and he forced her into the bedroom. Once again, not going into what he actually did to her, but ultimately he ransacked her bedroom looking for trophies to take with him before he did strangle her with pantyhose. Rader had another nighttime commitment, but he did not want to leave her body in the house, so he put her body in the trunk of her own car, drove to a lake in Park City, and hid her under some trees. He then drove back to her house, wiped down for fingerprints, retrieved his gun, and he left to go back to his other commitment. Now, I don't know what it means by his other commitment. I don't know if it means that he was going back to the Cub Scout meeting, or if he was going to, if he had another victim that he was going to go to, or what. But at a later date, he went back to move Dolores' body, and he left it under a bridge in Sedgwick County, where she was ultimately discovered, still with the pantyhose around her neck and with the horrifying and infamous BTK mask in the dirt next to her body. Now, I did read something about this mask, but I didn't include it here, but you can Google it and find it if you wish to do so. Rader had put the mask on her remains and photographed the scene. So apparently he had a fetish for wanting to photograph his handiwork. And I did not look at them, but I did also, in my research, find pictures of some of the victims with these masks on. If you, once again, if you that's something you want to look at, you can Google it and feel free to look at them. But it's just something that I personally did not want to see. So Dolores she was 62. She was born in 1928 in Stella, Nebraska. She was raised on a farm. She was an excellent cook who made everything from scratch. That once again reminds me of my grandmother. My grandmother cooked everything from scratch. She was an excellent cook. She could take nothing and make it into a gourmet meal. Let's see. In 1961, after 12 years of marriage, a son and a daughter, she and her husband Harry divorced. She was fun, protective, a devoted mother and grandmother who was adored by her family. Jeff, her son, always spoke to his mother on the phone on weekends for hours. When her children and grandchildren gathered for Christmas at her house in 1990, um, excuse me, I'm sorry, I think I actually just swallowed that gnat that has been flying around my face. I apologize. I'm so sorry. That's very unprofessional. Anyway, whew. Okay, so when her children and grandchildren gathered for Christmas at her house in 1990, they cried as they watched All Dogs Go to Heaven together. See, I would have cried too because I've watched that movie and it makes me cry when I watch it. But it's a very good movie. Dolores had just retired from her job of over 25 years as a secretary for a fuel company. She was passionate about animal rights issues and she enjoyed being a Mary Kay cosmetic sales consultant. Wonder if they do. I haven't heard much about Mary Kay lately. You always used to hear about Mary Kay and Avon. I know Avon is still around because my mother buys stuff from Avon from her from our local Avon representative. So this is Jeff Davis, who is Dolores' son. He said his mother was a very caring, giving type of person. And now he did write a book called The Shadow of Evil, which documents his experience with his mother being killed by BTK. If I can find a link to it, maybe from Amazon, I'll put it in the description section because it's definitely a book that I would be very interested in reading. And some of you might have read it. So if you have read it, leave a comment and let us know a little bit about the book. And if it's, I'm sure it's worth reading, but just let us know about it. He says she was just a very kind and considerate and loving person. She had been a beautiful person inside and out. And he says she was just disregarded and thrown out like a bag of garbage, which is true, unfortunately. So that Dolores was the last, excuse me, sorry. So Dolores, I believe, was the last known victim attributed to Rader. But I love this quote from Jeff Davis, who is Dolores's son. He says that each of the victims' families knows the special kind of horror that they experienced. Absolutely. You can think you would know how you would feel and the horror that you would feel if something like this happened to you, but you do not truly know the extent of the horror until, God forbid, you ever experience it. And God forbid, I hope me, you, everyone out there never has to experience that kind of horror. There may be some of you out here watching that have experienced that horror. And if you feel comfortable, you can leave a comment. You don't have to, please don't go into detail. But just if you feel comfortable, if you have experienced the loss of a loved one through violent crime, just leave a little comment or a heart or just, and if you have, my thoughts and prayers are with you. And I'm just so sorry that you had to go through something like that. So Jeff goes on to say, I look at all those other survivors, Nancy Fox's folks, wonderful people, the Oteros, the surviving members of the Otero family, and what horror they went through, and I know their stories. And I look at all those people and the lives destroyed, knowing that one of God's creatures, as we say, was responsible for all of this. And it is really hard to swallow, just really hard to swallow. I thought that was very, very well said, and it just sums it up in a nutshell. The horror that not only the horror that the victims go through, but the horror that the family members have to live with for the rest of their lives. And almost becomes like a survivors club. Um, and it's just so, so sad. And my heart, once again, my thoughts and prayers go out to all these family members of these victims of BTK, and to all family members who are all family members who have lost a loved one through violent crime. My thoughts and prayers go out to every single one of them. All right. So we will end by taking a look at the 10 attributed victims. Joseph Otero, Julie Otero, Josie Otero, Joseph Otero Jr., Catherine Bright, Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox, Marianne Hedge, Vicky Wegerly, and Dolores Davis. They will never be forgotten. As long as I'm around, at least, I will always do my best to keep their names out there, to keep their stories out there. Pray for them, pray for their families, send good vibes and support to their families and loved ones. So that's my mantra of my channel, is never forget. Never forget the victims, never forget the victims' families. It's just so important to keep their stories out there. Right, that's the last slide. So we'll end on that slide. So, thank you so much for, once again, I've been talking for about an hour now, but thank you so much for sticking with me and taking a look at these victims. Like I said, it is very important to me to talk about the victims, to remember the victims. If you like this video, found it informative, please give it a thumbs up. Comment on it. Please share it. The more likes, comments, and shares, YouTube pushes it out. More people that see it. And we want to keep, like I keep saying, we want to keep these victims' names and stories out there so that they are never forgotten. So until next time, Friday, I will be back with my cold case of the week, which is a cold case, I believe, from 1977 from West Virginia. So I will be bringing you that. In the meantime, please take care. Be careful out there. Take care of your fellow human beings. That is the most important thing we can do, is watch out for each other so we can all make it through this life safely. So once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.